I used to think love was supposed to feel like this, like sacrifice, like bending until you nearly break, like giving and giving with nothing in return. I was wrong. Emily and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. She had always been ambitious, determined, and fiercely independent, and I admired that about her. But somewhere along the way, her drive had turned into something else, a need for control. While you're here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know. At first, it was subtle. Small comments, little digs wrapped in laughter. Oh, Kevin's got it easy. While I'm grinding at work, he's probably at home watching TV. A joke among friends. I laughed it off, even as I felt something tighten in my chest. But the comments never stopped. Why don't you hit the gym, babe? Might help with your confidence. I swear. You'd forget your own head if I wasn't here to remind you. Kevin, you just don't get how the real world works. You've never had to fight for anything. I had fought, though. I fought to support her while she chased her career. I fought to keep our marriage strong while she worked late nights, took weekend meetings, and devoted more time to the gym than to me. I cooked. I handled the house. I made sure everything ran smoothly so she wouldn't have to worry. But somehow, in her eyes, that made me less. The turning point came at a family gathering. Emily's parents had invited us over for dinner. A big event filled with cousins, aunts, uncles, the kind of thing where appearances mattered. I was in the kitchen, helping her father set the table, when I overheard Emily's voice from the other room. Kevin? Oh, he's sweet, but let's be honest, he's not exactly a go-getter. A laugh. Her sister. Still playing house while you're out making real money? Emily sighed dramatically. Yeah, I mean, he tries, but sometimes I feel like I have to be the man in this marriage. You know? Silence. Then laughter. Something in me snapped. I stepped into the doorway, my jaw tight. She hadn't noticed me yet, still basking in the attention of her audience. I cleared my throat. The room fell quiet. Emily turned, her eyes widening for just a fraction of a second before she forced a smile. Oh, babe, we were just joking. I nodded slowly. Yeah, funny joke. She waved a hand dismissively. Come on, don't be sensitive. It's just how we talk. I met her gaze, something in me shifting. No, it's how you talk about me. A beat of silence. Then she scoffed. Oh my God, are you really going to make this a thing right now? I exhaled, looking around at her family, at the people who had laughed along with her. Then I turned back to her. No, not right now. But in my mind, the decision was already made. I wasn't going to be the joke anymore. The ride home from Emily's family dinner was thick with tension. She stared at her phone, scrolling as if she hadn't just spent the evening mocking me in front of a room full of people. I kept my hands tight on the steering wheel, focusing on the road, my mind replaying her words on an endless loop. Sometimes I feel like I have to be the man in this marriage. The words had been followed by laughter, like a perfectly rehearsed punchline. But I wasn't laughing. Not anymore. For years, I had convinced myself this was just how she was. Blunt, sarcastic, someone who didn't filter her thoughts. But tonight had been different. Tonight, I saw it for what it really was. She wasn't just making jokes. She was making sure I knew my place. I pulled into the driveway, killing the engine. Emily sighed loudly, like just being in the car with me was exhausting. She didn't wait for me to say anything before swinging the door open and stepping out. Are you seriously going to sulk all night? She muttered, grabbing her purse and heading for the house. I followed her inside, closing the door behind me with a little more force than necessary. I'm not sulking, I said, keeping my voice even. She tossed her phone onto the counter and turned to face me, arms crossed. Oh, really? Because you've barely said a word since dinner, and your whole brooding act is getting old. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Do you even hear yourself, Emily? She rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. I stepped closer, my voice measured but firm. You humiliated me tonight. Again. Just like you do every time we're around your family, your friends, anyone you want to impress. And I'm supposed to just laugh it off? She scoffed. Oh my God, Kevin. It was a joke. Everyone knew it was a joke. You're the only one making this a thing. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. A joke? Right. Just like last week, When you told your coworkers I pretend to have a job. Or last month, when you told Mark and Lisa I wouldn't last a day in the real world. Or how about all the times you've said you feel like you're raising 2 kids instead of one? She shifted her weight, folding her arms tighter. You're blowing this out of proportion. No, Emily, I said, my voice rising just a fraction. I'm finally seeing it for what it is. She narrowed her eyes. Oh, please. You're acting like some victim. I work my ass off while you. I cut her off, stepping even closer. While I what? Run this house? Make sure everything is taken care of, so you don't have to lift a damn finger? Handle everything so you can focus on your job, your gym sessions, your social life? Yeah, Emily, I do all that. But to you, that's nothing. Because it's not making 6 figures, right? She let out an exasperated laugh. Oh, give me a break. You make it sound like I don't appreciate you. You don't, I said simply. She hesitated for just a second, then shook her head. You're acting ridiculous. I exhaled, clenching my jaw. Tell me something, Emily. If I treated you the way you treat me, if I mocked you in front of my friends, made you the joke at every dinner, belittled everything you did, how long would you stay? She blinked. Just once. A tiny flicker of something crossed her face. Maybe realization, maybe guilt. But then it was gone, replaced with anger. You're twisting things. I work hard, Kevin. I make the money. I keep this house running. You keep this house running? I repeated, my chest tightening. Emily, you don't even know what day the trash gets picked up. You've never cleaned the fridge. You don't know where we keep half the things in this kitchen. The only thing you do around here is remind me how much more important your job is than anything I do. She clenched her fists, her face flushing. So what? You want a medal for doing chores? For cooking dinner? For what? Playing house while I handle real responsibilities. I stared at her, something inside me shifting permanently. There it was. The truth. Not a slip of the tongue, not a joke, just raw, unfiltered truth. I nodded slowly, stepping back. Right. Because anything that doesn't bring home a paycheck is worthless to you. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. You've spent years making me feel like I wasn't enough. Like nothing I did was enough. But here's the thing, Emily. You don't get to define my worth. Not anymore. A flicker of panic crossed her face before she masked it with another scoff. Oh, come on. What are you even saying? I grabbed my keys off the counter, my heart pounding, but my mind completely clear. I'm saying I'm done playing the fool. Her expression hardened. You're not going anywhere. I met her gaze, unflinching. Watch me. And with that, I walked out, leaving her standing there. For the first time in years, I had the final word. I spent the night at a cheap motel across town, lying on a rock-hard mattress, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the old AC unit. I should have been furious. Maybe part of me was. But mostly, I felt empty, like a balloon that had been overinflated for years and had finally popped. All that pressure, all that tension, gone. But now I was left with the pieces. Emily hadn't called, hadn't texted, nothing, which told me everything I needed to know. I drove home the next morning, not because I was ready to talk to her, but because I needed clothes, my laptop, something to anchor me. When I walked through the front door, the house was quiet. No smell of coffee, no sound of the shower running. She hadn't come home last night. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. Maybe she stayed at a friend's. Maybe she went to her sister's. Maybe she was exactly where I suspected. I stepped into the bedroom, grabbing a duffel bag from the closet, shoving clothes inside without much thought. My mind was buzzing, stuck between anger and something heavier. Was this it? Was this the end? Then, as I reached for my phone charger on the nightstand, my elbow knocked against the dresser, jarring something loose from behind the drawer. A small box tumbled onto the carpet. I frowned, bending down to pick it up. It was a gift box. Expensive. Wrapped in sleek, black paper with a silver ribbon tied neatly at the top. I knew instantly that it wasn't for me. My pulse quickened. I tugged the ribbon loose, unwrapped the paper, and flipped the box open. Inside was a brand new designer watch. Not the kind I'd ever wear, too flashy, too expensive, too bold. The kind of watch a man wears when he wants to be noticed. A small note was tucked underneath. I pulled it out, my fingers cold despite the warmth of the room. Can't wait to see you in this. Love, E. The handwriting was Emily's. A slow, suffocating weight settled onto my chest. I stood there, gripping the box, my mind racing through every possible explanation, every desperate excuse I could try to believe. Maybe it was for me, and she had been waiting for the right time to give it to me. Maybe it was a gift for a client, a business partner. Maybe, no. The truth was right in front of me. I inhaled sharply, forcing myself to think. Who was it for? My stomach turned as I pieced it together. The late nights. The increasing distance. The constant need to be at the gym. Tyler. Her personal trainer. The guy she raved about constantly. The one who had been so dedicated to her fitness journey. The one who had started giving her private training sessions. Sessions I wasn't allowed to attend. I felt sick. This is why she had been tearing me down. The belittling, the jokes, the condescending remarks. They weren't just about control. They were about justification. She had been making me smaller and smaller so she wouldn't have to feel guilty about what she was doing behind my back. My fists clenched around the box before I forced myself to relax. No, I wouldn't explode. Not yet. I walked to my desk, grabbed an old watch I hadn't worn in years, and swapped it with the designer one. Then I rewrapped the box carefully, exactly as I had found it. She wouldn't suspect a thing. I placed it back behind the drawer and stepped back, breathing heavily. My heart was pounding, my mind was screaming, but one thought pushed through the chaos. I needed proof. I wasn't going to confront her yet. If I did, she'd find a way to twist it. She always did. No, this time, I would be smart. Precise. This time, I would catch her in the act. And when I did, she wouldn't be able to talk her way out of it. I sat in my car outside the gym, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I had never wanted to be this guy. The one who had to sneak around, track his own wife, gather evidence like some detective in a bad crime show. But Emily had left me no choice. If I confronted her now, she'd twist the story, paint me as paranoid, gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. No, I wouldn't give her that chance. I needed proof. And when I had it, there'd be no escaping the truth. I took a deep breath, opening my phone to the tracking app. The night before, I had installed a small GPS tracker under her car bumper. A simple, cheap device, barely noticeable. Now, I watched as the little red dot blinked steadily, parked exactly where I expected it to be. At the gym. She had told me she was working late tonight. Another lie. I exhaled, my mind racing. It wasn't enough to know she was there. I needed to catch her inside. I had been a member of this gym for years, though I hadn't used it much lately. Emily had convinced me to sign up when she first started getting into fitness, back when she actually wanted me around. But things changed. She had changed. Now, she barely acknowledged me when she was here. I walked through the entrance, flashing my key card at the front desk. The young guy working the counter barely looked up. "Evening, man," he said casually. I nodded. "Hey, quick question. Do you know if the security cameras cover the private training rooms?" The guy frowned, caught off guard. I think so. Why?" I forced a chuckle, shaking my head. "Oh, just curious. Emily's been training with Tyler, and she keeps bragging about her form. Said she wanted me to see, but I figured I'd just check the footage if I could. That was all it took." The kid grinned. "Oh, dude, for sure. You can see all that in the security room. That's where the feed runs through. You want me to pull it up?" "Idiot." I kept my face neutral, nodding casually. "Yeah, that'd be awesome." The security room was small, dimly lit, filled with monitors showing different parts of the gym. The weight room, the lobby, the hallways. And there, in the corner of the screen, was the private training room. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering. "Can we rewind a bit?" The guy shrugged. "Sure, man." He clicked through the feed, reversing the footage until it showed Emily entering the room with Tyler. I watched, my stomach twisting. She wasn't there to work out. No weights, no warm-ups, just hushed whispers, stolen glances. I watched as she leaned in, as he placed a hand on her back, guiding her in a way that had nothing to do with fitness. And then, the moment that confirmed everything. She looked around, checking the door. Then, she stepped closer. Too close. Way too close. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. There it was. The truth. The kid beside me shifted uncomfortably. Dude, I don't think she wanted you to see this. I let out a breath, nodding. Yeah, thanks for your help. Then, as casually as I could, I plugged in my USB drive and copied the footage. I left the security room, my mind already working through the next step. Confronting her was too easy. She had embarrassed me for years, made me feel like less of a man, treated me like an afterthought while she built her perfect little lie. She wanted to play games? Fine, let's play. I made my way to the main floor, scanning the gym. Everywhere I looked, TVs were mounted to the walls, broadcasting different workout programs, club updates, motivational quotes. And then I saw what I needed, the system control panel. Most gyms had a central feed for their screens, used for promotions and training videos. A little tech knowledge, a quick upload, and suddenly, every screen in the gym would be playing the same thing. I pulled out my phone and connected to the system using the access code I had swiped from the security desk. My hands were steady as I uploaded the footage. Then, I waited. 15 minutes later, the private training room door opened. Emily walked out, sweat glistening, her smile smug and satisfied. Tyler followed, rolling his shoulders like a man who had just won something. I stood near the weights, watching, waiting. Then, one by one, the screens flickered. Emily stopped. Tyler glanced around. And then, there it was, the footage of them together, playing on every TV in the gym. Gasps filled the room. Conversations stopped. People turned, staring, whispering. Some reached for their phones, recording. Others just watched, their eyes flicking between Emily and the screens. She froze, her face draining of color. What, then? Recognition. Horror. Tyler took a step back, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The gym manager stormed out of his office, his face red with anger. What the hell is this? I crossed my arms, tilting my head. Looks like a private session to me. Emily whipped around, her eyes wide, frantic. Kevin, she breathed, her voice shaking. This isn't. The manager turned to her, shaking his head in disgust. Get your stuff. You're banned from this gym. For life. Emily stumbled, looking at me like she was drowning. Kevin, please, I clapped, slow and deliberate. Looks like you need a new gym, and a new husband. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the ruins of the life she had destroyed. I walked out of the gym without looking back, my heart pounding in my chest. The moment had been perfect. Emily standing there, drenched in sweat, humiliated in front of the very people she wanted to impress the most. She had made me feel small for years. Now, she knew what it felt like. But I wasn't done. This wasn't just about exposing her. It was about making sure she couldn't twist the story. She had spent our marriage controlling the narrative, making me the joke, the man who wasn't good enough. I wouldn't give her the chance to spin this into another excuse, another way to make herself the victim. As I got into my car, I pulled out my phone and sent the gym footage to my lawyer. I want this on record, I wrote, just in case she tries anything. His reply was immediate. Understood. Do not engage with her directly. Let her come to you. I smirked. Oh, I knew she would. It didn't take long. By the time I got home, my phone was ringing. Emily. I let it ring out. Almost immediately, she called again. Then again. I finally picked up, putting her on speaker as I set my keys down on the counter. Her voice came through, shaking, furious, and desperate all at once. You absolute bastard. I exhaled, unbothered. Nice to hear from you too, Emily. You humiliated me. She screeched. Do you have any idea what you just did? I leaned against the counter, watching the sun set through the kitchen window. I think I have a pretty good idea, but go ahead, tell me. This is different, Kevin. She stammered. It's not what it looked like. I chuckled. Emily, I watched the footage. I saw what it was. And now, so did everyone else. Silence. Then, she tried a different approach. Her voice softened. Kevin, please. I know you're angry, but can we just talk? In person? I smiled to myself. There it was. The panic. The loss of control. Yeah, I said. We'll talk. At my lawyer's office. Her breath hitched. You're what? I stretched my arms, enjoying this moment. Oh, you didn't think this was just about the gym, did you? No, Emily. We're done. The papers are being drafted as we speak. A sharp inhale. Then, you can't do this. I laughed. Emily, you had an affair in a gym with cameras. You did this to yourself. You're throwing away our marriage over a mistake? She snapped, desperation laced with fury. A single mistake? I scoffed. Emily, this wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is saying something you don't mean in an argument. This was a choice. And now you get to live with it. She let out a strangled breath. Kevin, I ended the call. For the first time in years, I had the last word. 3 days later, we sat across from each other in the conference room at my lawyer's office. Emily had her own attorney with her, some high-powered guy she had probably scrambled to hire at the last second. She looked different. Her usual confidence was gone. Her perfect composure cracked. She stared at me, eyes pleading. Kevin, we don't have to do this. I leaned forward, my voice calm. You did this the moment you decided I wasn't enough. Her lawyer cut in, trying to regain control. We're willing to negotiate a fair settlement. I slid a folder across the table. There's nothing to negotiate. You signed a prenup. Emily paled. I continued. You cheated. It's all on record. The gym footage, the texts, the bank transactions showing you paying for that hotel near Tyler's apartment. Yeah, I checked. I tilted my head. So, tell me, Emily, what exactly do you think you're entitled to? She clenched her jaw, gripping the edge of the table. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Foster, our concern is ensuring a fair. I cut him off. Fair? Was she fair when she spent months tearing me down so she could justify cheating? Was she fair when she paraded me around as her personal joke? I shook my head. No, I'm not interested in fair. I'm interested in done. Silence. Emily swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. Kevin, I don't want this. I leaned back, crossing my arms. You should have thought about that before you threw everything away. Her lawyer sighed, defeated. We'll review the paperwork. I stood up, buttoning my jacket. Take your time. Emily stared at me, her eyes glossy, but I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, just peace. As I walked out of the office, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't her joke anymore. I woke up the next morning feeling something I hadn't felt in years, relief. The divorce wasn't finalized yet, but it didn't matter. The hardest part was over. Emily was out of my life. No more late-night arguments, no more passive-aggressive digs, no more feeling like I had to prove my worth to someone who never valued it in the first place. I poured myself a cup of coffee, standing by the window of my new apartment. It wasn't as big as the house Emily and I had shared, but it was mine. Every inch of it belonged to me, free from her shadow. The quiet wasn't suffocating anymore. It was peaceful. Then my phone rang. Emily. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. 3 days had passed since our last meeting at the lawyer's office, and she had been silent since. But I knew she wouldn't stay quiet forever. I let the call go to voicemail. Not even a minute later, it rang again. This time, I picked up. Kevin. Her voice came through, a mix of anger and desperation. We need to talk. I took a slow sip of coffee. We already did. At the lawyer's office. What else is there to say? You're really going through with this? She snapped. You're throwing away our marriage just like that? I chuckled, shaking my head. That's funny. I was about to ask you the same thing when you were sneaking around with your trainer. She let out an exasperated breath. God, Kevin, it wasn't serious. I made a mistake. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. Stop calling it a mistake, Emily. A mistake is accidental. You don't accidentally meet a guy behind my back. You don't accidentally lie about where you are. You don't accidentally betray your husband for months. Silence. Then, her voice dropped to something softer, almost pleading. I was unhappy, Kevin. I scoffed. So was I. Difference is, I didn't cheat. She exhaled sharply. I lost myself, okay? I got caught up in the attention and feeling wanted. But I never stopped loving you. I let her words hang in the air, waiting to see if they did anything to me. They didn't. Kevin, she continued when I didn't respond, her voice cracking. I don't want to lose you. We've been through so much together. Can't we just talk? Please. Just one more conversation, face to face. I ran a hand through my hair, considering it. Not because I wanted to reconcile. There was nothing left to fix. But part of me wanted to hear what excuse she'd try next, what last-ditch attempt she'd make to manipulate me. I sighed. Fine. One conversation. But that's it. I met her later that evening at a cafe downtown. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window, her fingers wrapped around a cup of tea like she was trying to steady herself. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, a flicker of hope flashing across her face. Too late for that. I sat down across from her, folding my hands on the table. All right. You wanted to talk. Go ahead. She exhaled slowly, like she was carefully choosing her words. Kevin, I know I hurt you. I know I messed up. But I need you to understand that I never meant to lose you. I stared at her, unimpressed. You lost me the moment you thought I was stupid enough to never find out. Her jaw tightened. I didn't do it to hurt you. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah? Well, congratulations. You did anyway. She shifted in her seat, gripping the edge of the table. We had problems, Kevin. You withdrew. You weren't present. I held up a hand, cutting her off. Don't sit here and try to blame me for your choices. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. Instead, you cheated. So don't sit here now and act like this is some shared mistake. She flinched, her breath catching. For the first time, I saw it. The realization that she couldn't talk her way out of this. I don't want this to be over like this, she whispered. I leaned back, shaking my head. You didn't want me, Emily. You wanted control. And now that you've lost it, you're panicking. That's not love. That's fear. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No regret. Just finality. I pushed back from the table, standing up. This is over. The papers are coming, and you'll sign them. If you don't, I'll make sure the court sees every single piece of evidence I have. Your reputation is already in shambles. You really want to drag this out? She swallowed hard, nodding once. She knew she had lost. I turned to leave, but paused, looking back at her one last time. You spent years making me feel small. Now you know what it feels like. And with that, I walked out of the cafe, never looking back. The divorce papers were filed within the week. I thought that would be the end of it, a clean break, signatures on a line, a final chapter in a story that had dragged on too long. I should have known better. Emily wasn't the type to accept defeat, not without a fight. At first, she ignored the paperwork. Days passed, then weeks, and still no response. My lawyer, Richard, wasn't surprised. She's stalling, he said, flipping through the documents in his office. Hoping you'll get impatient, hoping you'll come crawling back and give her the upper hand. I smirked. She doesn't know me very well, does she? Richard leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Not anymore. Emily wasn't just ignoring the divorce. She was trying to rewrite the story. I started hearing things from mutual friends, little whispers here and there. Emily was playing the victim, telling people I had blindsided her, that I had embarrassed her at the gym out of spite, that I was overreacting to a harmless mistake. I ignored it at first. Let her talk. Let her spin whatever lies she needed to soothe her ego. But then, she took it a step further. A call came in one afternoon while I was working from home. My phone lit up with an unfamiliar number, but something told me to answer. Kevin Foster? A deep voice asked. Yeah. Who's this? This is Officer Daniels with the local precinct. We received a report regarding an incident with your wife, Emily. Would you be available to come down to the station for a brief conversation? I froze. What kind of report? The officer hesitated. She claims you were emotionally abusive during the marriage and that she felt threatened after the gym incident. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Of course. And do you believe her? There was a pause. Mr. Foster, we're just following up. There's no official charge, but we do need to document both sides of the story. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. I'll be there in an hour. Richard met me at the station. "This is a scare tactic," he said as we walked inside. "She knows she's losing, so she's trying to paint herself as the victim. Keep it factual, keep it calm, and we'll shut this down before it even starts." The meeting was short. The officers asked routine questions, took notes, nodded at the answers I gave. When I handed them a folder of evidence, gym footage, text messages, bank statements linking Emily to Tyler, the shift was immediate. They saw the truth. The officer across from me sighed, closing the folder. "I don't see anything here that supports her claims. If anything, this paints a different picture entirely." Richard smirked. "Exactly. Emily had just made a fatal mistake. In her desperation to destroy me, she had given me the perfect opportunity to prove her lies." The false report was dismissed. The officer sent Emily a warning about filing baseless claims, and my lawyer wasted no time adding it to the divorce proceedings. Her leverage was gone. 3 weeks later, we were back in a lawyer's office, sitting across from each other with nothing left to say. Emily looked different, exhausted, defeated. She still wore the expensive clothes, still carried herself with the same posture, but there was something missing: the control. Her lawyer cleared his throat. "Emily has decided not to contest the divorce." Richard nodded. "Smart move." Her gaze flicked to mine, searching for something: a reaction, an opening, a sign that I still cared. I gave her nothing. The papers were signed that day. It was over. As I stood to leave, Emily's voice broke the silence. "Kevin." I turned, waiting. She swallowed hard. I never meant for it to end like this." I studied her for a long moment, letting her words settle. Then I nodded. Neither did I. The day the divorce was finalized, I stood outside the courthouse, staring up at the clear blue sky. It was over. No more legal battles, no more accusations, no more waking up every morning wondering what version of Emily I'd be dealing with that day. I was free. I had spent years walking on eggshells, convincing myself that things would get better if I just tried harder, if I just ignored the comments, if I just loved her enough. But love wasn't supposed to feel like that. Love wasn't supposed to be a competition where one person always had to prove their worth. And now, I didn't have to anymore. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of the past roll off my shoulders. For the first time in years, the future was mine. I moved into a new apartment downtown, a modest place, nothing fancy, but it was mine. No reminders of Emily. No lingering ghosts of a life that had never been what I thought it was. Just a clean slate. I poured myself into my business, working late nights, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because now, every bit of effort I put in was for me, not for someone who would never appreciate it. The work paid off. Clients I had lost touch with started coming back. Old colleagues reached out, offering opportunities one would have missed before because I was too busy making sure Emily had everything she wanted. I reconnected with friends, the ones I had slowly drifted away from over the years. They never said it outright, but I could see it in their faces. They had been waiting for this. Waiting for me to wake up, to realize that the man I had become wasn't the man I was meant to be. One night, while having drinks with a few buddies, Mark raised his glass toward me. "To Kevin, back from the dead." I smirked, shaking my head. "I wasn't dead." Mark chuckled. "Maybe not, but you weren't really living either." I took a sip of my drink, letting his words settle. He was right. While I was rebuilding, Emily was crumbling. The gym had banned her for life. Tyler, her so-called personal trainer, had bailed on her once the fallout from the scandal became too much. She tried to act like it didn't bother her, posting motivational quotes online about growth and forgiveness, but the cracks were showing. The whispers followed her wherever she went. The friends who once admired her confidence now saw through it. She had spent years crafting an image of power, of control, of being untouchable. But the second the truth came out, that image shattered. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Kevin," Emily's voice came through, quieter than I'd ever heard it. "Can we talk?" I sighed, already knowing where this was going. "What do you want, Emily?" A long pause. Then, "I don't know." I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. "That's a first." She let out a weak laugh, barely audible. "Yeah, guess it is." There was something different in her tone. No anger. No arrogance. Just exhaustion. Derek, she said after a moment. I messed up. I rubbed a hand over my face. Yeah, you did. I lost everything, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Tyler left. The gym wants nothing to do with me. My reputation is, she let out a shaky breath. I don't even know who I am anymore. For a brief second, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, no desire to rub it in. Just indifference. That's not my problem, I said simply. She was silent for a long moment. Then, softly, can we talk? I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. We just did. Then I hung up. That was the last time I ever spoke to Emily. She had built her life on lies, manipulation, and control. And in the end, it all collapsed on top of her. Meanwhile, I had built something real. Something that couldn't be taken away. My business continued to grow. My confidence was stronger than ever. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't living for someone else. I was living for me. And that was worth everything. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.